It's early.
Ready to go. Ready to go? Good morning. I'm Mason County Judge Executive Owen McNeil. I want to welcome everyone to the February 27th special call meeting, Mason County Fiscal Court. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Madam Clerk, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome back. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, can you kick us off with a quick roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioner McKay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner O'Hearn?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, in your packets, you will see the meeting minutes from the special call meeting February 17th, 2026. Looking for any comments, discussion, additions, or deletions.
Motion to accept as presented, please.
I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner O'Hearn?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil?
Yes, ma'am. For today's meeting, Treasurer Davenport is traveling today, so we have Projects Director, Ms. Kim Muse. Commissioners, in your packet, you will see vendor claims, and I will turn it over to Ms. Muse.
I'd like to have the court's authorization to pay claims as presented totaling $71,586.50.
So moved.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any additions, deletions, or additional discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner O'Hearn?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, that brings us up to old business. First up, we have the International Paper Waste Services Agreement. Myself, County Attorney Estel, the fine folks and our corporate partners with International Paper have gotten this pulled together. John, any comment?
Yes, the changes we were held up for and they agreed to involved making us a preferred provider. We wanted it to be exclusive to us. They wanted to leave open to other vendors, but with the investment being made by county, they agreed to make us a preferred vendor. So business comes to us first if they have business changes that we can't provide and they need to bring in other contractors to haul waste, which would go to our landfill by solid waste plan, but we changed that. Also, they had it they could terminate for their convenience, and we changed that to basically if International Paper went out of business here, it could terminate. So that was favorable. The only issue we have is on page 5 of this agreement. We determined from CAECO that we cannot procure through our insurance pollution liability coverage or the waiver of subrogation riders to policies. We have notified International Paper of that. They do not have authority to take that out at this point.
Okay.
But we're taking it out because we can't provide the coverage. So we're striking some language, and I'll have the judge sign that. It's probably going to require us to come up with an addendum to this to address those issues with International Paper, but being that your service starts March 1st,
Yes, sir.
this needs to be approved as corrected, and there's line through on page 5, Your Honor, for you to sign and decide, as well as signing the agreement. So that's approving the International Paper Waste Services Agreement.
Commissioners, if you'll remember, we talked about this in our last meeting. They were contracted with Waste Management vis-a-vis Rumpke employing two folks out of Madison County down in Richmond. Benefits of this contract, as John mentioned, by statute, all of their refuse already comes to our landfill. We're just now signing up to haul that refuse. The benefits of that are additional employment for the citizens of Maysville, Mason County. We are using some of the revenues for an equipment purchase lease through CAECO that gets our landfill up into a higher area of customers potentially, where we could potentially approach a Kroger or a Walmart that has these compactor machines, and it
We don't have
will.
a copy of what he just read.
It's a working copy. I didn't make
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yep.
Do we already have personnel in place for this?
We had,
or-
we had it last time, it was in your packet, but without this strike, it only came up yesterday afternoon about 4 o'clock. For some reason you don't have it.
Yeah, right.
And I'll give you the, I don't want this one, I'll hand it to you.
But I think it's gonna be very, very beneficial for not only landfill, but also for Mason County. International Paper is very pleased to continue to support, provide our local community with the employment and benefits that they have been, so. So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion,
I'll second that.
and we have a second. Any additional discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Ahern?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil?
Yes, ma'am. And so, Commissioners, that brings us up to ordinance number 26-01, the consideration of a tax amendment for data centers or technology campuses for potentially a second reading. You want to highlight?
Sure. I was waiting for you to call me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, John, sorry.
Ordinance number 2601, first for second reading by summary. An ordinance adopting and affirming the findings of fact of the Mason County Joint Planning Commission pertaining to the siting and regulation of the data centers in Mason County, Kentucky. Adopting the recommendation for the amendment of Mason Fiscal Court Ordinance number 0207 with modifications to the proposed amendments. Establishing a land use classification for data centers and amending the land use charts, and republishing ordinance number 0207 to incorporate such amendments. I'm going to go through this by changes since your first reading, and there's lots of clean-up language. There's some more protective language. There's some that it gets rid of ambiguous language, but I'll go through that as we go through. Specifically with regard to the ordinance itself, as you'll recall, there's an ordinance and then there's an Exhibit A, which is the regulations for data centers. But there are findings of fact that you adopt, first of all, and you've already voted on this, but pursuant to City of Louisville versus McDonald and other cases, we adopted the record as a whole from the Planning Commission, which is, I don't see y'all's binders in front of you, but there we go. Commissioner McKay can produce his. That's record's been certified by George Larger and adopted as the record of the Mason Fiscal Court without holding additional public hearings. The findings of fact recognize Mr. Grady's presentation, Mr. Nichols' presentation last time, and makes findings specifically as to some of the changes in this. You have to make specific findings to the extent you're not following what the Planning Commission does. And I'll explain those as we go, but substantial local concern over necessity of ample setbacks to mitigate those impacts has resulted in changing a 500-foot setback to 750 for residential. In addition, since the last read and based upon Tanner Nichols' presentation to you last time, and I'm pleased with this change, that the testing of generators will have to come before the noise limitations. Pursuant to Judge McNeil's push, we've reduced the limitations on daytime noise. It was at 55, and we've dropped it to 50, which basically makes consistent nighttime and daytime noise limitations measured from the adjoining properties, or in the case of a residence, from that edge of that residence. And nighttime construction is going to have to comply, is not prohibited, but must comply with the noise requirements. And I don't understand big construction, but, you know, I would think it would prohibit steel erection, earth movers moving at nighttime, but if there were plumbers or electricians working inside, that could comply. It wouldn't prohibit anybody from working at nighttime. It's just the noise that you would be regulating. With that, and adopting those findings, which you have in your packet, specific findings as to why it changes from the Planning Commission, and as I read the regulations that you'll be adopting, I'll go through and discuss changes. In general, the Planning Commission adopted a regulatory or a recommended regulations for you that, just to make clear what they do not prohibit data centers. This is a ordinance which is intended to permit data centers in the I-3 zones, not outlaw data centers in Mason County. Balancing that from the Planning Commission was to have some robust protections for citizens and particularly neighboring property owners, and this is an attempt to balance those in keeping with what the Planning Commission recommended. So a lot of this language is mine. I sort of wish it wasn't mine, but at some point somebody's got to do the drafting, and I did the drafting of this. So a lot of these changes are because the more time you have to draft, the more I kept drafting, so or cleaning up. So with that, I'm going to go through the changes. And if you go to the Exhibit A in your, and I'm going to do these quickly, so you stop me as you have questions, commissioners or judge.
Fair point.
First change is in 417.2. It originally said, as approved by the development plan, as approved by the Planning Commission. And as you're aware, there is provisions for somewhat of oversight, I'd call it, a fiscal court of Planning Commission in approving that. So instead of saying by Planning Commission, it says as provided in section 417.3L below. Give me 1 second to catch up here. Sorry. If you go to, and I don't have page numbers, I'll page number this final. Hopefully that's the only change we'll have, is to add page numbers. But in 417.3, which is all the regulations, if you go to G on noise, it's that first line, sensitive use, that has changed. And it goes from, it was 55 in the FAR column. In other words, daytime use was 55, and the judge suggested, and I have changed that to 55.
Change it to
50.
50,
Change it to
50,
50.
right. It reads as 50.
They can make it work at night, they can make it work during the day.
When we get into the generator and testing requirements, they all remain the same except for number 5, the non-emergency testing at the intervals provided above shall comply with the noise limitations in section G1 above. Basically, it provides for testing no more than once a week per unit, noon to 5, Monday through Friday. When they're doing that, it's got to be, they've got to comply with the noise requirements. We have removed from L the reference to the rest of our zoning ordinance. It used to say 401, as provided 401.3B and 401.3, but the approval of this development plan is somewhat different from the rest, so we say as provided herein, and so you'll see some changes out of that L development plan. M, and some of this is practicalities. We learned from our friends at East Kentucky Power, when they read it, that we had will serve utility letters will be required from applicable service provider stating that adequate power is or will be available. We had in there that the will serve letter had to say there'd be no fluctuations in power. East Kentucky says they cannot put that in there, that they're regulated by the PSC, they're regulated by federal law as to the service, and they can't write us letters that are different than that. So we've changed that so that they do not provide that no fluctuation service. The water providers, which are under, our water districts are under the purview and funding of Fiscal Court, and we have home rule duties over regulation and provision of water. That those requirements stay in there with regard to water. So when they get from the city of Maysville a will serve letter, or the rural water district, if they did proceed in that fashion, those will have to say we can provide the water and it won't impact existing customers. So basically, it's looking again. We're trying to address things that county rules under the home or controls under the home rule statute, and stay away from things that are larger level, federal energy policy or PSC regulated with that.
Both electric providers and water utility providers have to attest that they can handle the additional business without negative consequences on current customers.
There was a line in N3 which has been removed, and it referred to potential, that basically the developer was to provide the development plan potential for public nuisance. We have removed that because it's just not practical. You're asking the people who were regulating to tell us what the public nuisance is, which doesn't make sense to me. In focusing on what the public nuisances are here that county is concerned about and has authority to regulate, is really noise, dust, and traffic, as I see it. So we focused in this on removing that line about having them identify their own nuisances, them or any other potential data center developer, and beefed up our noise, traffic, and dust provisions of this plan. So it's just a change of the language around slightly. The community, if you see changes in this, the largest changes are in O, which is community impact analysis, and it's primarily to make it read better. We would say that my first draft and the Planning Commission's draft and mine, I'll say in combined, one time we'd say they have a plan, one time we'd say a description, one time we'd say that they should provide a narrative. Yeah. So we've gone through and said for each one of these things, it just reads a little clearer. It says a narrative description of each item. So it reads a little better. For instance, chart number 1 says they were to provide a narrative description of activities and hours of operation, the total number of employees, each shift, the times. We've changed that to the estimated total number of employees, because you're asking them to provide you a number of employees they have before they've hired the first employee or even started any kind of operation. So we're trying to recognize that this is done, development plans in the front end, not at the time of it's before building permit, it's before operations start. So just trying to get what you get in the initial phase versus what you get at the end of, or when it's in operation. So that section just reads a little different. We tried to say, I've tried to tie 5 and 6, and again, this language was always there, it's just cleaned up a little bit. But we're trying to tie the use of roads, traffic, and damage to roads to the permitting system. If you relied on this regulation in a development plan, again, remember the development plan's on the very front end of a project when they announced and are seeking to move forward before final plans and done everything on their side. If they use, you've got an ordinance that says any commercial use of county roads is outlawed without a permit, except for ag products and school buses and et cetera. So they've got to come to the county, for instance, for a permit. This kind of construction use of state roads required permitting. So basically, instead of trying to be the be-all regulation of that permitting in advance, it's just incorporating it so that number 5, for instance, they're going to give you a description of the routes for construction maintenance purposes, including the description and plan for traffic control and safety. And then in 6, it's going to list what permits they're going to require, how they're going to handle these permits, a statement that they understand that any permits or agreements and any promises they make in a development agreement. In other words, if this prospect were to come in and say, we want to build a new intersection of this road, this could hold them to those kind of promises. And finally, it says that they've got to make a statement up front that any damages to public roadways caused by construction will be repaired per the terms of permits, which is always required as permits. So we're not getting details. When you get a permit under our permit ordinance, you come in, you provide a itemization of the roads, you go out and film where you're gonna take pictures, you have engineering reports, and then you go out after the project's done and you do another inventory and see what the difference is. You can put conditions in it like requiring plating of roads and things to reduce damages, and you require a bond. We're leaving all that for the permit procedures to protect the roads, both state and county. But we're recognizing in here that it's going to be an obligation of them, and they're going to promise to fix whatever may be broken or worn from it.
So how do you enforce it if they don't? If they make the damage and they don't want to repair it, how do you?
First of all, you get a bond for
Okay.
you get an engineer's permit.
Okay.
Now, we've had this with East Kentucky, and they're doing a one example would be they took our South Ripley Road, we deeded it to them, and they built us a new South Ripley Road. I can promise you that the bond that we set for that probably wasn't sufficient if they had failed to meet that. But you also rely on the financial resources of the person you're contracting with, and that you can sue them and enforce it. So, whether you can set a bond that's reasonable to cover all the potential roads or not, we'll try to do that. But it'd be by suing to enforce the permit and any damages done. Like I said, it's our permitting. Our permitting is more a concern when you have a small contractor crossing with a utility pipe than it is when you're dealing with a massive undertaking. I mean, just in my experience, we've had more damage and issues with crossing in one little place than we have in, or along a ditch line that's not restored or something than we have with this type of project. And finally, the decommissioning plan is it's just cleaned up. That was changed and written a day or so before the last meeting. It really sort of tightens it up some. That you can come up with a term, and this, I think I said it was equipment and all personal property had to be removed, which isn't a very good description, but I don't know anything about data centers. So is what's required to be removed is servers, rack, and computer server equipment, which then becomes the term known as equipment throughout. So it's more precise than it was before. Mine may have included desk or it may have included, something else, is what we want to focus on is, that's the planning commission's concern in this, was servers, racks, and computer server equipment, so this applies to that now. We did tighten it up so that if it's abandoned for 120 days, that fiscal court, we kept it would have had a second 120 days, and we changed it to 60 days. That after 60 days of them failing to act, county can go in and take action, file a lien, sue them, whatever's necessary. Complaints and the appeals remains the same. So this is this latest draft, which we've given second reading to, does tighten up and provide additional resident and citizen and public protections in reducing some noise, clarifying the 750 setback, which is additional from the fiscal court, applying noise requirements to any testing of generators, and applying noise requirements to nighttime operations. I think on the other hand, it is language that in some respects more practical, realizing that the development plan is very preliminary and is not the be-all as-built design. So we tried to make it simpler so somebody could comply with that, the development plan provision. So those are the changes as presented. Judges, you've given me the broad brushstroke of follow the planning commission to clean it up, I think. I think all of you were concerned about the nighttime noise, and we've made sure to address that. And the rest of it, the judges worked through. So.
What about the environmental impact studies? They go to state and federal law, or?
They do, to the extent that federal law applies. If they said, if for instance, an applicant did not have an erosion control plan, or did not have and I'm looking at Jack over there behind you, because I think because he does understand this and I don't. But for instance, if there's some sort of state or federal erosion control, surface water runoff, we know that there's controls of point source discharges of water. But if those other things aren't covered in some kind of federal or state permit, then they would be regulated by the planning commission and fiscal court. So as long as they can show that they are complying with and have something permitted, then it's sufficient without us looking into it. If there's something that falls outside of that, particularly I think of surface water collections, that sort of, but that is regulated now. That's been regulated for 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that became regulated.
John's got a good
Even
point.
with gas station parking lots and things, I mean, the surface control has become bigger, whether all the erosion concerns and that sort of thing is addressed in the federal state permit, I don't know. But if it's not, it'll be part of this plan. Jack nods with me sometime behind me.
Sure.
And Jack Ammerman spoke at the
Jack.
planning commission
Yeah,
and
I
here.
remember.
And I'm only picking him out because he's right behind y'all and he's nodding and shaking his hand.
Do you have anything to add, Jack?
Yeah, no, so one thing from my understanding, the way this is written, because a large majority of that is covered by state and federal permitting, right? We have the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. However, with our current federal government, that stuff changes, right? President Trump redefined the definition of public waters in the United States just in the past few years. So in the event that those federal law changes in the course of this project, this code covers it at the local level.
What about, let me get this, different like birds or animals that are restricted? You guys-
So whenever you have a federal nexus of submitting for a federal permit through the Corps, they have a requirement for threatened and endangered species
Right.
habitat survey, and there's an IPAC review, as well as a cultural resources survey.
Okay.
National Historic Properties Act is incorporated. When you do anytime they draw a permit for, and when he's talking about changes in the definition of waterways, it used to be, it was up to this time, even a dry weather conveyance that collected water occasionally would be waters of the U.S. That is in flux. So that's what he's talking about there. When you talk about the waterways of the United States, it's not the Ohio River. It's all the little teeny things that collect that. So that definition could change. But if you draw any permit, whether it's a Corps of Engineers, dredge and fill permit, or to cross a waterway, if you have a water permit, if you have an air permit, all those things impose compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, which incorporates Historic Properties Act, and that's where you get all your analysis of the snail darters and the Indiana brown bats and
Three-eyed bats.
all
Indiana.
of that stuff comes in, as well as cultural and historical resources. So as soon as they draw one permit, they have to do all of this, and it's a pretty involved process. And that's what we don't want to get.
Yeah, I mean,
We don't want to replace
Yeah.
the EPA or the Environmental Protection Cabinet, the things that they are regulating, so. Because I just told you everything I know. And I actually exhausted everything I know.
I am, that's a good point. I want to applaud again our unpaid volunteer citizen members of the Joint Planning Commission who sacrifice time at home or time with their hobbies, as well as the countless evenings John, his staff, a lot of us put in to make sure this fits, within our current ordinance as it stands, grammatically and from a framework standpoint. John and I had a conversation yesterday or the day before that you're probably doing in zoning and I guess a lot of government, you're probably doing a pretty good job when everybody is irritated with you. And so I think that's where we stand. I am pleased, with the added protections of 750 feet. I know that has been on all three of the commissioners' minds. I'm pleased with the construction ordinances, and just being a good neighbor, only doing construction while the sun is up. Here in Kentucky, we generally stick to that theory, and then I feel relatively confident that some of our roads from construction will be damaged. But I am confident we've got a framework in place that should these additional investments and career-making jobs and opportunities come to Mason County, we've got an avenue to recapture those costs. And I was also thinking, I got and I provided those letters to the three commissioners. Who got a letter from the head of the state's task force on artificial intelligence and data centers. And if you think back over the last 2 years, Maysville and Mason County and our region has been somewhat leading the way for the Commonwealth of Kentucky after the legislators even made it remotely possible for these things to operate here. Their recommendation off that committee mirrors a lot of what we worked with 18 months ago with our friends with East Kentucky Power. I think you'll also see a lot of those caveats being referenced in the State of the Union, and you're seeing those gravitate nationally in the sense that added power and these opportunities cannot inversely affect those that are already here. Whether you're in a house that's close to potential development, or whether you're a customer of a utility on the system. And then, I guess in a long-winded way, what I'm trying to say is I am proud of the fact that a lot of the ideas that are generated here, you're starting to see gravitate national with regulating these things. And you three, us as a body, I think, should be proud of the small part we have played in doing that.
So it is 2601 is the ordinance itself. There are 3 exhibits you're adopting. A are your new regulations, which I just reviewed with you. B are the findings of fact of the and conclusions of law recommendations of the Planning Commission. And C is the regulations of the Planning Commission. So you're not adopting C, you're modifying C, but there's 3 exhibits to this ordinance, 2601. And they're all together in your package.
So that,
Or whatever I sent you.
would that be one motion or?
It's one, just one motion. One motion.
Additional thought?
I would just say, I just want to thank County Attorney Estill and Judge and the JPC for all the work. This is a tremendous amount of work, and for listening to folks and addressing some of these concerns. You know, I know some will look at it and think it's not perfect, but, you know, in a county of 16,000, it's never going to be perfect for everybody. But I do appreciate all the work that's been put in, and the thought process, you know, and you mentioned it, Judge, but, you know, the tariff agreement that's been, you know, that's come into place as, you know, is a huge, huge deal as well. So I'm just kind of reiterating what you said there, but, you know, I know it's a lot of work and it's really appreciated. And I think at the end of the day, we have to decide, you know, our votes are, you know, what's in the best interest of this county moving forward. And, you know, there will be construction headaches, there will be some headaches that we'll have to work through. But at the end of the day, is this project in the best interest of Mason County? And in my opinion, I believe it is.
To add on his, I want to include the things only what Chris said in regards to John and you and the JPC, but also the Industrial Development Authority in Tyler. Who's out every day beating the bushes. I mean, every little city, town, county throughout the country is looking for jobs, industry coming to their area. And we're at a crossroads here. I mean, growth. To simply grow. How do we grow? Where's Mason County now? Where we want it to be in 25, 30, 40 years from now? And how do we get there? Responsibly. But as this letter reads from President Senator Stivers that you just handed me, or all the commissioners, I have to agree with him in regards to the economic impact of the data center. It's going to be significant. Bringing new jobs, tax revenue, and all, and sparks a ripple effect of growth as companies are drawn into the area. How it's going to benefit our schools, increase revenues for our students, educators, strengthen our foundation for future workforce, and attract additional investment. I've always thought that the possibility of this to do that, attract additional investment. And not only additional investment, but to the local economy, to the small businesses, to the restaurants and tourism. I mean, I just think this is going to be I mean, people keep asking why Mason County, and my question is why not Mason County?
Like that though. Yes, sir.
I mean, why not Mason County? If it's done responsibly.
100%.
If it's done responsibly. I mean, I've made some notes. I understand the valid concerns in regards to the environment, water, setbacks. I mean, they're very realistic. Land, energy use. But with this possible coming to our county, you're looking at possibly a diversified the tax base with this technology investment and the revenue, the tax revenue. I mean, we have to provide the best services. Our citizens deserve the best citizens that we can afford to do. It's in regards to public safety. roads, we've got jails, sanitation. We've got to look down the road that provides stability financially, in my opinion. Basically, long-term financial stability, okay? But we're here to weigh both sides. I mean, change is hard. Change is hard. Growth is, but we're gonna grow. We're gonna grow one way or the other, either by chance or change. It's just that simple. Do we take a chance that you keep beating the bushes and maybe the industry comes into the area, and how long is it gonna take? Or do we, take this change and look at it and do it responsibly? And I just figure, it's this data center, considering this is not a dismissal of the concerns, but it's a commitment to move forward responsibly, in my opinion, with enforceable conditions that have been set forward, clear operating standards, and ongoing oversight to protect our community. I just think it brings a great long-term benefit to Mason County, basically for the greater common good, for the community and its citizens, for the greater common good.
I want to thank everyone who had part in all this too. It's a lot of hard work. And
Yes.
we're just gonna have to, I think a data center's a good opportunity, as long as it's done in the right way. And we shall see about that, but I really appreciate everything everyone's done, and because it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of negative, positive thoughts from everybody, and we'll just have to move forward and see where it goes. But
Well said, well said. So,
And if I could remind, there's not property zoned by, you're adopting regulations on it. There's not, I think any I-3 zone property is probably owned by East Kentucky or owned by Carmouche. And so there's not I-3 property. So this is just one step, adopting the rules or regulations.
and so in review, in August, October, I think last year, this body requested the JPC to review these. This would mark the culmination of the text amendment and the creation of I-3 legislation. Hopefully, going forward, we have interest that would submit what is known as a map amendment, that would designate what the action is, what the project ultimately looks like. Within this, that would be representative in a 60-day window. However, given these developments, those recommendations would still come back to this body. With any industry, from car sales to data centers, technology centers, what have you, you have probably better players, and you also, as referenced in our state leadership, from more speculative developers. And so I think the framework that is in front of you three provides that ability and the protections to protect our community from that, along with our historic partners, not only in KU, but EKPC, as we are a dual-served county. And so I very much hope we get to see that map amendment. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? I'll call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any additional discussion?
Not to be picky, and so moved usually gets it, but that is a motion to approve 2601, ordinance 2601, adopt.
Correct.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner
Yes, ma'am.
McKay? Commissioner O'Hearn.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, in your packet, you'll see board reappointment to Western Lewis Rectorville Water and Gas. Our good friend, Mr. Keith Phillips, is completing a partial term after a midterm appointment, and he's rolling into his new term. He's doing a good job. Then we also have communications from the judge and commissioners. I want to remind everyone of the benefit auction for the Hamilton family. It's hosted by the Hilton branch, but it'll be out in Maze Lick. I think I messed it up at the last meeting and said it's going to be in Germantown, but it is in
Maze Lick.
So for my good friend Joe Collins, wherever you are, I'm just making sure I got it right. 3 to 8 p.m. Saturday. Yes, sir. Miss Brandon and Melissa Hamilton, who suffered a fire now 4 weeks ago, lost everything. Great family. That's what I got. Any announcements, communications from the three of you? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
You
said that we could have a few minutes from the public.
Sure, come on up.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. You can time me if you want. I just have a few things to say. From a layman's perspective, 'cause that's what I am. None of the changes.
Be sure to identify yourself.
I'm
sir.
Julie Burton.
I know that, but we need to make sure you say it on the record.
I live on Neptune Road in Ewing, Kentucky, in Mason County. But from a layman's perspective, none of the changes announced today, February 27th, have addressed protecting prime farmland or land of statewide importance fully, as stated in our comprehensive land use ordinance. I know you're saying 2,000 acres. We know it's going to be more than that. We're pretty sure, okay? And plus the 4,000 acres or so of solar on farmland in Mason County near Mason Lake. Health effects of data centers haven't been addressed. We need to know if you're going to announce when a permit's actually been requested, since you're approving this. I would like to request that the environmental impact studies and community impact studies be released to the public. And I do appreciate JPC, but there have been a lot of individuals who researched this too. And a lot of our research would preclude even entertaining the idea of data centers on farmland.
Thank you, Julie.
Just one thing to say is that a map amendment would be the same process, same public hearing requirements, so that whatever happens will be public and will be noticed and will be right to be heard.
Okay, thanks, sir.
I'll also bring up, Senate President Stivers' communication that he transmitted to you guys as a court. He brought up, as well as others, the misinformation that is promulgated throughout a lot of this process. There are geopolitical concerns here that the United States has to account for. And 2 years ago, when they brought that up, I took it kind of with a grain of salt. Other governments outside of the U.S. Putting out misinformation to eradicate our technology lead. But as I sit here before you today, I can identify more than 10 defined examples of information specific to our area that have popped up outside of the continental United States. Every picture, every post, everything that goes online has metadata and information that you can track. And it is alarming to me at times, some of the information that is shared, from drying up the Ohio River to nuclear concerns. Our partners with EKPC have been fantastic partners for our community for north of 80-plus years. We very much appreciate them and their assistance, not only in the natural gas line that for the first time will represent the availability of opportunity in northeastern Kentucky, but also for the economic impact that they have provided our region and state in good times and in bad. Nothing with this project has anything to do with solar, with nuclear. And so I'm very much hopeful for a map amendment. That's all I have. Sorry, was rambling. Any additional comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion? We have a second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner
Yes,
McKay.
ma'am.
Commissioner Ahern.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge McNeil.
Yes, ma'am.